Well, hello friends, Andrew Doubleday here yet again. And today we're looking at the lectionary reading, the Gospel reading for Sunday the 18th of July. And the reading is Mark chapter 6 verses 30 to 34, then 53 to 56. So between the first part and the last part there's a hiatus of 19 verses. It kind of feels a wee bit like having pre-dinner drinks followed by a coffee with an after-dinner mint without the meal in the middle. And yet, when we look at these two, the beginning and the end parts of a significant passage, in the middle of it there's the two miracles. There's the feeding of the 5,000 plus and the walking on the water. So that whole is missed, and we've got the kind of bookends of the passage both put together. So Mark chapter 6 verses 30 through to 34 and 53 to 56. It still has something, I think, powerful to teach us. The apostles gathered around Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. He said to them, "Come away to a deserted place, all by yourselves, and rest a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in the boat to a deserted place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and they hurried there on foot from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. As he went ashore, Jesus saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. In verse 53, when they crossed over, they came to a land at Gennesaret and moored the boat. When they got out of the boat, people at once recognized him and rushed about that whole region and began to bring the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages or cities or farms, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and begged him that they might touch even the fringe of his cloak. And all who touched it were healed. It's a great narrative, isn't it? It starts with Jesus' concern for his disciples. They'd just come back from their first mission trip. They'd gone off, you remember, he'd sent them off 2 by 2, and now they've returned. And Jesus recognizes their need to decompress, to debrief, to be able to rest a while. So he puts them all in the boat and thinks, well, we can sail away for some much needed R&R. Yet, as they landed, he was recognized. People had seen them go and they were watching the direction of the boat. And word spread like wildfire. There was no rest for Jesus. That may be why Jesus continually sought to keep people from advertising their healings. He actually wanted a more relaxed pace, recognizing that the frenetic pace, which the huge marketing campaigns, which he never wanted, was not sustainable. Yet here he is, yet again, seeing the people, and he's moved by one motivation: compassion. As he went ashore, remember in verse 34, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. The word that's used here for compassion is splanchnizomai. And it's a word that in the New Testament only refers to Jesus, or to God, or to characters that Jesus references in his parables. For example, the parable of the, the prodigal son. And it's that point in the story where the father sees his son in the distance. He's been waiting perhaps for years, looking out day by day to see his son returning. And he sees this little figure and he recognizes, just in the way the figure holds itself, the dejected picture of his son. And he rushes downstairs. His whole heart turns over and he rushes out to embrace his son. He has compassion on him. And the literal sense of the word is it goes to the very core, the deepest part of who we are, to our internals, to our gut. It as literally says his heart turned over within him. You know that when you're deeply moved, it affects you at the deepest part of you. And this is what happens for Jesus. He sees the crowd, harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. We see exactly the same phrase used in Matthew chapter 9, and Jesus has exactly the same response. Jesus sees the lostness. He sees the emptiness. He sees the brokenness. He sees the desperation. He sees the hopelessness. He sees the pain of life that these people are carrying and living with. It's not visible on the outside, but it is seen by Jesus nevertheless. The broken relationships, the shame and the guilt, the deep sense of unworthiness, of failure, of not being enough. Jesus sees it all. And his response? Not judgment, not condemnation, not, well, it's your own fault, not, you've made your bed, you've got to lie in it, not, well, what did you expect? You've got what you deserve. You recognise those phrases? Ones we use to judge others and use to judge ourselves. None of those responses is Jesus' response. His response is compassion. Splanknizomai. He wants to see the people healed. He wants to see us healed. Remember his mission statement from John 10:10. I've come that you might have life and have it in all its fullness. And this is what it looks like. This is how it starts. Compassion. Splanknizomai. So he spends the rest of the day ministering with the crowd. Finally, he sends the disciples off in the boat while he finishes with the crowd and blesses them on their way. Presumably, we're not told, the disciples got some respite while in the boat. Jesus, we read, recharges by going off to pray. And after he reconnects with his disciples, the boat lands and the whole process starts all over again. People recognize Jesus. The word goes out and all the sick are brought to him. Notice that they beg to be able to touch the hem of his garments. Clearly word's gone out that this is a surefire way of getting healed after the healing of the woman with the 12-year issue of blood. Remember? She touched the hem of his garment and was instantly healed. And he lets them. Thank you for asking. And they're healed. And each time that someone is healed, power goes out from Jesus. Each time Jesus is depleted that little bit more. Each time people are set free. And while it's costly for him, he wouldn't have it any other way. Nothing has changed. 2,000 years later, his mission is still the same. He looks upon us and sees us as we are, and our brokenness, and our messiness, and he's moved beyond condemnation and judgment. None of those things figured. He's moved with compassion. He's present so that we might have life and have it in all its fullness. You and me. Amen. God bless you.